had that feeling, just a gnawing pit in your stomach, that something is fundamentally wrong with the modern world?
Hmm.
You look around, you see the headlines, you hear the politicians, but your gut, your instinct tells you it's all a lie.
It's like your instincts are screaming danger, but society is just, patting you on the head.
Exactly. Telling you to calm down, take your meds, stop being so paranoid.
It is the defining neurosis of the modern Western male, I think.
Yeah.
That dissonance between what you see with your own eyes and what you're told to believe.
And when you try to voice it, you get gaslit. You get a label.
Toxic, insecure, far right.
Yeah. Well, today we are tearing the lid off that. We are doing a deep dive into a piece of writing that is, honestly, it's less of a book and more of a weapon.
I'd agree with that.
It's an ebook called Cultural Enrichment of Muslim Grooming Gangs by Conrad Riker. And let me tell you, this is not a light beach read.
No, it certainly isn't. Riker has written what he calls an ultra-long, incisive critique of Western decline. He's writing for a very specific audience.
The red-pilled men. The ones who feel that the institutions they built have turned against them.
And he argues that this isn't some kind of accidental decay.
Yeah.
It's a deliberate dismantling.
We are going to unpack everything in this text. From the gynocentric trap to the controversial concept of passport jihad. But before we do that, I need you to do two things.
Okay.
First, hit that like and subscribe button right now. If you want the truth that the algorithm tries to hide, you need to support this deep dive.
And secondly, look, we're going to give you the key insights here, but Riker's work is just so dense with data and philosophy.
For sure.
If what we discussed today resonates with you, you need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books immediately and buy the ebook Cultural Enrichment of Muslim Grooming Gangs.
Get the full uncensored experience for yourself. And follow him at Conrad Riker on Substack.
You have to.
Okay, let's get into the meat of this. The book starts with a punch to the gut. The war on male instinct.
Right. Riker says that male vigilance, that protective, suspicious nature, has been pathologized, it's been turned into a sickness.
But it's an evolutionary survival mechanism, isn't it?
Of course. Historically, men had to be vigilant to protect their lineage, to prevent cuckoldry, to make sure resources went to their own offspring.
But today, if a man is suspicious, he's diagnosed with relationship anxiety disorder, or he's just called controlling.
And there's that devastating story in chapter 1 about the man in Manchester.
Oh, yeah. He thinks his wife is cheating, she's coming home late, smells of cologne, the classic signs.
So he goes to a therapist, and the therapist, a feminist counselor, according to Riker, tells him he's just being toxic and paranoid.
And he listens. He suppresses that gut feeling. He trusts the system.
And then he takes a DNA test.
Both kids aren't his.
Exactly. And the lab tech tells him this happens constantly.
Wow.
Riker's whole point is that the system is designed to disarm men mentally. If you can convince a man his own gut instinct is a mental illness, you render him defenseless.
And that idea, being rendered defenseless, that bridges us into the next major section of the book. And this is where it gets systemic. Riker calls it the gynocentric trap. Right.
For someone just tuning in, that sounds like a buzzword. What is he actually describing here?
He's describing the family court system, but he frames it in a way most people are, frankly, afraid to. He calls it the baby mama industrial complex.
Okay.
The core argument is that the state has effectively replaced the husband. Through welfare and family law, wealth is forcibly transferred from men to women, regardless of who's at fault.
It's the idea that you can be fired from your role as a father, but you still have to pay the salary.
Of the replacement, precisely. And he brings the receipts on this. He cites CDC data showing that fatherless boys are drastically more likely to end up in prison or commit suicide.
And yet, despite knowing this, the courts continue to prioritize maternal custody.
By default. He argues this isn't an accident, it's a feature of the system.
He uses a phrase that I think is going to stick with a lot of people: civilizational cuckoldry.
It's a harsh term, yeah?
It's provocative, for sure. But what does he mean by it? He's describing a specific economic reality. It's the idea that native men are taxed, often working 60-hour weeks in dangerous jobs, to fund a system that actively discriminates against them.
So they're paying to support single mothers via the state.
Or, as we'll get to later, foreign dependents who have no loyalty to the civilization paying their bills. The native man is the provider, but gets none of the authority or respect.
He's a resource to be harvested.
Not a citizen to be protected. Exactly.
This feels like a coordinated effort, not just random bad policies. And Riker traces this back. He talks about the Frankfurt School.
Yeah.
I feel like I hear that term thrown around a lot, but let's actually unpack the history Riker presents.
This is crucial for understanding the why. The Frankfurt School was a group of Marxist philosophers who realized, back in the early 20th century, that the Western working class wasn't going to revolt.
Why not?
Capitalism was actually making them too comfortable. So they shifted the revolutionary focus from economics to culture.
To dismantle Western civilization by attacking its foundations. Family, religion.
Tradition, everything. Riker argues this morphed into what we now call cultural Marxism.
So instead of seizing the factories, they seized the universities.
That's the long march through the institutions. And Riker says the mechanism was replacing merit with identity. He points to modern university syllabi like decolonizing the mind.
Where logic and reason are branded as tools of white male dominance.
Right. If you value objective truth, you are now an oppressor.
And if you control the university, you control the teachers, and then you control the next generation. Which brings us to what Riker calls the war on boys in schools.
This part is tragic. Riker claims we're essentially drugging boyhood out of existence. He cites the huge disparity in Ritalin prescriptions.
Boys are 5 times more likely to be medicated than girls.
He calls it a form of chemical castration of male energy. The natural male desire to move, to compete, to be rough. It's treated like a disease in the classroom.
Because the classroom is designed for girls. Sit still, be quiet, listen.
And when a boy acts like a boy, he's medicated until he acts like a girl. It's suppression of biological reality from the age of 6.
It's not just the drugs, though. It's the language. He has this whole section on the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric. He argues there's been a grammatical coup.
This is a fascinating point.
Yeah.
He argues that by controlling language, you make it impossible to think certain thoughts.
How so?
When you change mother to birthing parent or illegal alien to undocumented, you aren't just being polite. You're removing precision. You're making it impossible to speak the truth.
You can't name the thing accurately.
And if you can't name it, you can't oppose it. You're disarmed before you even open your mouth.
Which brings us to the most explosive and frankly the most controversial part of the book.
For sure.
We have to talk about the demographics. He calls it the passport jihad and the womb jihad.
This is where Riker shifts from social critique to a geopolitical warning. He argues that migration is being used as a military strategy.
The premise being, you don't need bombs or tanks to conquer a territory.
If you can just move millions of military-age males into that territory and have the host nation fund them with tax dollars.
He tells that story of Eric, the Dutch engineer. That one really encapsulated the frustration.
Eric is the archetype. High-functioning engineer, paying massive taxes. And he realizes his money is directly funding a Somali neighbor who has 4 wives and 14 children.
And none of them work?
None of them, all supported by the state. And Eric's reaction isn't to riot, it's to quit.
He goes galt.
He realizes the contract is broken. Why work yourself to the bone just to fund your own replacement?
Riker connects this to Robert Putnam's famous research
On diversity and trust, the IQ inversion.
Explain that.
Putnam's data, which Riker notes the left often tries to bury, showed that as diversity increases, social trust decreases.
Right.
Riker takes it a step further. He argues the West is importing populations from low trust, low IQ regions. When you do that, you don't get a magical melting pot. You get the collapse of social cohesion.
You get high trust societies like Sweden turning into low trust, fractured conflict zones.
And that fracture creates what Riker calls two-tier justice. We see this in the headlines constantly now.
If a native man defends himself, he's a criminal. If a migrant gang commits a crime, it's a cultural misunderstanding.
The Rotherham grooming gangs are the smoking gun here. 1,400 young white girls in the UK systematically exploited, raped, and trafficked by gangs of predominantly Pakistani men
And the police did nothing for years.
because they were terrified of being called racist. Riker emphasizes this. The social workers and police knew what was happening. But the ideology of multiculturalism was more important than the safety of those children.
That is the two-tier law.
It is. The native population is held to the strictest letter of the law, while newcomers are treated with cultural sensitivity.
It's enraging just reading it. And Riker points the finger at a specific demographic for enabling this, what he calls the Karen Jihad.
It's a sharp critique. He's talking about upper middle class white women in gated communities or safe suburbs. They vote for open borders. They champion these refugees.
For the moral status.
Right, but they don't bear the consequences. They don't live in the working class neighborhoods where the crime spikes. They effectively import danger that working class men have to deal with.
Luxury beliefs. They get the virtue, everyone else gets the violence.
Exactly.
So, where does this leave us? I mean, the picture Riker paints is incredibly bleak. Is it over? Is this just a eulogy for the West?
He says no, but the solution isn't political, not in the traditional voting sense anyway. He calls for a spiritual and masculine awakening.
The red pill of biology.
Exactly. The first step is rejecting the lies. Stop playing the rigged game. He talks about the male trust threshold.
Okay.
Men are naturally cooperative, but when the system becomes parasitic, men have to withdraw that cooperation. Marriage strikes, reducing your economic output that gets taxed away.
But it's active, too. It's not just quitting. He talks about the gym, the weights. Why is lifting iron so central to his philosophy?
Because it's undeniable. Physicality is resistance. Riker contrasts the soft, modern man, the soy boy archetype, with the man who embraces what he calls the suffering gradient.
Building resilience through voluntary hardship.
Yes. He points to the Iron Maori challenge in New Zealand or the All Thing Walk in Iceland.
And the Polish revival of masculinity.
Poland is a key example for him, a nation that has, in his view, rejected the Western Suicide Pact, maintained its borders, and embraced traditional masculinity and religion.
He argues God is dead, policies left a void that was filled by nihilism.
And to survive, men must return to the transcendentals: truth, beauty, courage.
It's about building parallel economies, too. We're seeing it with Rumble, with Substack.
For sure, men creating their own platforms because the mainstream ones will just silence them. It proves the rebellion is working, financially.
So what he's saying is you can't vote your way out of this if the culture is rotten.
You have to build a fortress of competence, of strength, and brotherhood outside the blast zone of the collapsing institutions.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that feeling you have, that instinct that something is wrong, that is your greatest asset. Riker is telling you to sharpen it, not suppress it.
Yes, he is arguing that the West isn't dying by accident. It is being dismantled. But that dismantling only works if men stay asleep, if they stay apologetic.
The moment you refuse to apologize for your nature, for your desire to protect your own, the game changes.
That's the message. You are part of a brotherhood of truth if you choose to see it. The future belongs to those who prepare.
Look, we have only scratched the surface of the data and the history Riker covers. We just have.
Oh, absolutely.
If this deep dive sparks something in you, you need to go buy the ebook Cultural Enrichment of Muslim Grooming Gangs on Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now.
Do not rely on our summary alone. Read the weapon itself.
And don't forget to follow @Conrad Riker on Substack for updates.
Riker's putting out critical intel there. You don't want to miss it.
Finally, if you want more deep dives that don't pull any punches, like and subscribe to The Deep Dive. We are here to uncover what they don't want you to know.
Don't miss the next truth bomb.
Until next time, stay vigilant.